All right, welcome to the Dre and Smiley, the Inner Circle podcast, Wellness Wednesdays. So, when I think of wellness, Smiley, I think about all that it encompasses: our mental health, physical health, spiritual health, etc. So, in terms of staying healthy, um, for you, Smiley, what does that look like for you in terms of staying healthy? What do you do?
Wow. It's two things I think I do. We mentioned on a previous pod, I met you by doing push-ups. I started a push-up virtual push-up session. My buddy who was getting married. He asked me to be in the wedding and he wanted me to get in shape. So I was doing push-ups. But now, since I've done 2 years during the pandemic of push-ups for physical wellness, I do a lot of walking. I work from home. I travel a lot, but when I'm not traveling, I sit in my office and sit there for 8 hours a day. I'll just get out and walk around the neighborhood, walk up and down the river walk here in Tampa for 2, 3 hours just to take in the atmosphere. And it helps me to think about something else. So I enjoy that more than the push ups.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you touched on working from home and what you do to kind of break the monotony of sitting at a desk for 8 hours. During COVID, I saw a number of people who went from leaving their house, going to an office, leaving the office, going out for lunch, and probably one or two more stops before coming back home, to completely flipping the script and just going from their bedroom to their desk or table, wherever they work from, to the kitchen, to that desk, back to the kitchen, and then somewhere else to sit down and watch TV, and then going to bed. That for me, it's inconceivable that I could sit down in one place for an extended period, because I don't know that my mental health could handle it. I don't know if my physical health could handle it. With you saying that you get up and you force yourself to kind of take a walk. Well, I don't know if you force yourself. You take a walk, and the reason is what you just said. Mental and physical health. I was thinking about this recently. My mental health management comes in the gym. The exercise. If I'm not able to work out, and I don't work out like an Olympian. I work out like a 80-year-old. I just go there. I just go there. Put up some 10-pound weights here and there. Just the movement is what keeps me sane. But when I'm not able to do that, when I'm not able to, it's I don't feel healthy. I don't feel healthy. Aside from walking, is there anything else you do to kind of help manage your health overall?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the being with the mundane of being in a house all day, because the reason why I get out to force myself to walk, because you get to see the elements, the dogs, the birds, and the sun. But I feel like I'm on house arrest. And I've never been on house arrest, but I guess I just imagine if
Imagine what it might be
I've
like.
gone 3 days without walking out the door, because I wake up, do my work at the job, then go to sleep, wake up, do it again. And if I'm not traveling, there's no reason for me to walk out the door. So I was like, hey, this is not good. You need to walk. Get your butt out the house. I felt like my mother back in the day, she would say, leave the house and be home before the street lights come on. But we had to get out the house. She didn't care where we were during the day, as long as we was back by the street lights. So, but another thing I do is I have this electric bike, and I have a couple bikes. Sometimes I just grab a regular manual bicycle and pedal around the neighborhood, shoot the breeze with my neighbors. Other times I jump on my electric bike. It goes like 27 miles on a charge, and I'll just zip around Tampa, put on my little helmet, and just make new friends or look at people, because I get a lot of joy. Sometimes I sit on the bench and just watch people walk by, just to decompress, because I'm not thinking about the job, I'm not thinking about the family. I'm just watching the water, and that's therapeutic to me, because your mind is always racing. And on one of our podcasts, we had Dr. Tweedy, And I think he said, just slow down and just let your mind rest. If you could stop your mind from just thinking. And so I try to incorporate some of the things he said.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like Dr. Tweedy, we had another mental health professional. I'm sure you'll remember Dr. Williamson, and I think you posed the question to her: what ways do you suggest we can implement to kind of keep our mental health intact? And one of the ways is connecting with others, right? And that's something I hadn't thought about, but if I go back even further, I remember going to a conference and there was this really wealthy guy, probably in his late 70s, who looked pretty healthy. Seemed, I'm not a mental health professional, but his mental health seemed to be intact. And one of the stories he shared is that part of his daily routine was to walk, and each week he meets up with his friends and they just get together and just talk. They just, how's everybody doing? How's the family doing? And on Sundays, there's it's a unique meeting he has at a restaurant here. I say unique because there's an individual who, a special needs individual, that he initially met at the restaurant and befriended, and since then, weekly, when they're able to, they meet up there. And I was thinking about, back then, probably 10 years ago, I was thinking, like, how does that impact one's life, right? Having those friends, that friend group that you connect with on a regular basis, having kind of being selfless on a regular basis, showing gratitude in your selflessness, and just kind of exercising. And it didn't hit me fully until Dr. Williamson, Dr. Tweedy, that we had on, kind of talked about how all those things, positively impacts your mental health. And tell me this, Smiley. I've heard different people say that gratitude, like showing gratitude on a regular basis, also does a huge part in allowing you to stay focused and centered and that sort of thing. Have you ever heard people talk about that the importance of showing gratitude? And if so, what have you heard?
Well, I experience it because appreciation, gratitude. My grandmother used to say, you get so much more with sugar than shit.
I love it. I love it.
Just if you share with people that you genuinely, you don't want to be fake, but if you genuinely appreciate and you're grateful for the things that others you can do for others or others have done for you, that compounds immensely through the universe. I believe in karma and all that good stuff. So you just appreciate someone and thankful for whatever, or grateful for whatever they've done or you've done for them. It comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
So and it all starts with like, say for you, what do you do? Do you walk? You play basketball? What do you do to make your when you need to just mentally decompress? You mentioned the weights, but what else would you do? Do you run? Do you bicycle? Swim?
Yeah. Great question. So for me, and I was thinking about this recently, some people, in terms of their mental health, the care that they give themselves, especially a lot of women I know, they go get massages on a weekly basis, or they, manicures, pedicures. Most guys, it's kind of, that's not a good use of my time or money. And so for me, as I mentioned earlier and touched on, is the gym, but also about 5-7 years ago, I bought a bicycle. And I'll tell you this, I don't know anyone who's like really like went in to buy like a nice bike, but it's a chore, man. Initially, I went into Walmart. I was like, oh, this bike seems nice. It fits good and all that sort of thing. I was fortunate enough to have a coworker that is a cyclist, and she's the one who puts on the latex or whatever it's called, stretch, the suits, with the cleats and all that type of thing. I have no idea what these terms are called. Please don't, those listening, don't get mad at me because I have no idea what the correct terms are. But she said, well, Dre, listen, let me encourage you to get fitted for a bike, right? It's a whole new experience from just buying a bike in terms of the ride quality. I'm like, I come from a working class group of family people. We don't spend lots of money on stuff like that. But I said, okay, I'll check it out. So I went to a couple different bike shops, and they told me, what to look for, the seat, the height, that type of thing. Ended up buying a decent bike. And dude, I'm gonna tell you, Smiley, I got on that thing, I was riding all the time. I mean, multiple times a week. And the feeling, I'd be gone for 2 hours or so. Sometimes I'd ride 10 miles. But the feeling is just, it's identical to what you mentioned earlier. Being out away from the distractions of work or life in general, and just listening to the birds chirp, seeing the leaves change colors. I know that's all sounds corny or whatnot, but just, you're right, man. I had the same feeling that you had when you were walking, just kind of just the freedom. And what's interesting is that it's amazing the types of ideas and things that come to mind when you're just away. You just kind of turn it off, and you're just away. And so, yeah, so to come full circle to answer your question in terms of things I do, bike ride, I also walk, and then, like you mentioned earlier, the gym. Those are some of the things I do to help, keep my mental health intact.
When you look at you started the conversation with spiritual, mental, and physical. Do you feed all three realms, or do you get that working out helps you with all three of those: spiritual, mental, physical?
That's Smiley, you're hitting me with the good ones, man. So that's a great question too. So, I think Dr. Williamson, who was on the podcast, mentioned this, how, it's all interconnected, right? And so you have to approach it with a sense of synergy, right? And so you can't just say, at least, generally speaking, I can't just say, oh, I'm going to pray every day and expect, to have low cholesterol, and high endurance when I'm walking, things like that. I can't just ride my bike every day and expect that my spirit's intact and that sort of thing. So I try to approach it with a sense of, synergy in whatever way that happens to unfold. I will say this. I don't have a plan written out in terms of how I approach these things, but I just try to develop habits, right, that feed each of these things, and those habits lead to success. So, for example, being mindful to read and practice things that support my spiritual development on a regular basis, making sure that I have a good understanding of how not to overdo it when it comes to the walks, the bike riding, the exercises. And then I touched on, the importance of connecting with others. If I can connect with others and leverage these areas, spiritual, mental, and health, while I'm connecting with others, that's like the win-win for everybody. There have been times when I've gone on a retreat, a spiritual retreat, where we do exercises and things. Obviously, that's it's a no-brainer. You're hitting everything. Other times, when I came down to hang out with you in Tampa for the incredible party that you threw. Never been to a party bigger or better than that. The food was like endless, by the way. From a health perspective, that probably wasn't the best thing for me to do, but I ate as much as I could. Yeah, so the connection with, meeting all these new people and people that I already knew, those are the different ways that I try to feed all three of them.
No, that's incredible. I mean, it's the Joe Scott said, one of the podcast people, mental health is almost at a crisis state. There's suicides outnumber homicides 3-1, and I never thought about that. But when you take in the gravity of that stat, that's a lot of mental people just crying out for help. And so I'm trying to keep my mental state strong and secure so I can help others who may be there for need.
Let me ask you a question, Smiley, before we wrap up here. For those that are listening to the podcast and are struggling, not sure how to even start with trying to, create a better balance as it relates to their mental health, their physical health. Do you have any suggestions for them, or what would you say?
After we had the various doctors and psychiatrists on, I would say seek professional help. And there's no shame in getting professional help. Or if you can't afford the professional help, speak to your friends and family members that you can just open up, or because there's help out here. And maybe whatever you're encountering, your friend or cousin already went through that and has some ideas, because it's not as bleak nor as dire as we always think it may be. Because in that moment, it seems like the walls crumbling down, but you reach out and speak to someone. And I think you hit it before. Men, we don't really ask for help because it's a sign of weakness, but I think it's a true sign of strength. If you're struggling, ask for help. Or if you need to do 1,000 push-ups to deal with that frustration, or let it out, or write a journal and stick it in a bottle, throw it in the lotion. I'm not telling you to litter, but get it out of your system and share it with someone. But get that help. I mean, you can find a friend in Zimbabwe on the internet. They'll never meet you. Share your ideas, share your problems with that person afar, just so you can get some perspective. And on average, I find most human beings on this planet, they want to help each other. I mean, the news and social media show all the bad, but by and large, most people, it's hard to find the bad guy. You can find them, but you got to find them out. You'll find 10 good people to one bad, in my experience. And I travel all the time. Every now and then I see this crazy person, not crazy, let's say politically correct, evil-spirited person, but on average, I meet a lot of good people. So reach out. For sure.
I love that. The only thing I would add is for everyone out there that has a friend, check on your friend. Let them know you're there for them.